What up, everybody, and welcome back. It's Rip City Real Talk here. We're going to go through a crazy week for you guys. 3 games only, but me and Anthony, my best buddy Anthony Blaylock, and I have some serious takes for you this week. So tune in and stay locked up tight for what's going to be a crazy episode. But I'll throw it to you, man. How's it going?
Good, buddy. We got our Christmas tree today. Got all the decorations up. It's been a good week. Packers beat the Rams today, just in case any of you Ram fans are out there. Hope not, but yep, took care of the sheep there, and so all good things for me, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm just coming up on the upswing of another great cold or cough or whatever the heck I've
Did
been
you get the
dealing with.
Omicron, the new
I don't
transformer
know.
of a virus?
I didn't get tested for the transformer virus, but I did. Yeah, I just was sick over Thanksgiving, and so I barely worked or did anything. We smoked turkey, and then we got to go get a Christmas tree, which I heard you did today.
Did that, yeah, buddy. $35, all sizes. Anybody needs a tree farm, look up North Fork and Malala. Awesome. Free hot cocoa, free ornament. Recommend them. This is an endorsement for them. That was a good deal. So yeah, it's getting to be that time.
That's sick, man. Well, let's jump into it here. So we only had 3 games, and the mottos go 500 or better, and stubbed the toe on that one this week.
Yeah, that's not what you want, but we started off good. We started off with the dub over the Nuggets. Everything was looking great there.
Yep.
119 to 100. They didn't have Jokic. They didn't have Michael Porter Jr. They still don't have Murray.
Yeah.
So, at home, you kind of expect to at least make it competitive and hope to win, and they did. So that's another one of those teams in our division. Obviously, with the playoff series the last couple of years, been one of probably our biggest rivals, I would say, the last few years.
Yeah.
So great to see that. They didn't have much going right for them, to be honest with you. They had Green went off for 24 points. I don't understand how this dude has played for like 12 NBA teams. It's ridiculous. He just continues to go and play for different teams. Yeah. And every time we seem to play against him, this guy goes off on us. It doesn't make any sense to me. Jeff Green just kills it.
Yeah. It was hilarious hearing the announcers. I can't remember what crew it was because it was a TNT game, but they were just saying, how does this guy keep signing and then not retain? The team doesn't retain him. It was hilarious. I kept laughing at that remark.
Well, it's true.
He's versatile.
He was about it. He was about all they had. The guys that played well against us the last game, Bones, Highland, and the likes didn't do quite so hot this game. Without Jokic, there really wasn't much to help carry their offense and run things, and they looked like they couldn't hang.
Yeah, it was an interesting game. I mean, Aaron Gordon really couldn't do a ton offensively. He looked pretty good defensively at times, but Austin Rivers, Campazzo, it was just one of those games. And then Dozier tore his ACL, which was terrible.
Yeah, you hate to hear that. He was playing good. I mean, he had a good bench role for him.
Yeah.
It's another loss. I mean, that team can't catch breaks and injuries. I mean, not everybody get hurt, but Denver's one of the teams. It's like, some guys have to miss some time, so be it. But really, they've been hit pretty hard, and you feel for him for sure.
So everything goes right with Dame and CJ, 32 and 25 respectively.
Each hit 5 threes.
Oh, man, beautiful. I mean, we only shot 38% from 3, but we were really efficient. I mean, we shot 51% overall from the field, which is great to see. There's not a ton from this game. If Jokic is in this game, is this a completely different game script? I mean, is this going to be more competitive, you think?
100%, because Jokic is so problematic for us. I mean,
he is.
You could tell that they were trying to run different offensive schemes and being unsuccessful with it because they had 19 turnovers. We only had 9. But that's the biggest thing that stood out to me as far as team stats go. 19 turnovers when you have Will Barton basically trying to run point forward and no true point guard on the team.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're going to see. Jokic runs so much of their offense at the block and making passes and setting the screens and just himself scoring that they just look lost without him, and obviously that's a problem for them if he continues to miss time. He's missed quite a few games now in the last couple of weeks, week and a half or so.
Yeah, it's going to be a problem.
But we also, another thing with the turnovers is we did lead 28-2 in the fast break point category, which is not something we've done a lot this year, but at home especially, we tend to, when we push the pace on turnovers and miss shots, we tend to do a lot better than we do on the road. So 28-2 in fast break points, that stood out a little bit. Just a good home win. I mean, we've been crushing it from home, and it's good to get a win over a team that's kind of record-wise right there with Portland in that little bubble of the 9-9, 10-10, 9-8. Those teams right in that record. So good win for them. We 1-on-1 with them now in the season. So
heck yeah,
it's all good stuff.
It seems like fast break was more of a point of emphasis this week for the Blazers. It feels like that was something that, whether it be shooting in transition or maybe it was just undisciplined play. I don't know. It just seemed like the Blazers were trying to score earlier, especially in that game and then the last game against the Warriors on Friday night. It just seemed like there was more hustle and flow to the offense.
Yeah, I mean that's the Billups side of things, right? Is trying to
Yeah.
kind of push and look for those passes and getting more of those opportunities. We haven't really had a lot of guys that can do that in the past. Dame has been fine at attacking, but Norman Powell especially. I mean, in this game, Norman Powell to me was one of the big difference makers. He continues to be, in my opinion, the best Blazer on the team outside of Dame,
Ooh,
of course. But Norman Powell, I think, better than Nurk and better than CJ this year, both on the offense and defensive side of the floor. But
yeah.
his ability to attack, especially on fast breaks, is great. And we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that was just one of those games where everything went right. You won the turnover battle by a lot. You won the fast break points by a lot. It allows you to kind of take control of the game. It was a nice, easy 19-point win.
Yeah, there's not a ton to say on it when you're at home and you're playing against a team that's that shorthanded, especially, I mean, if they
Right.
have Michael Porter Jr. and Jokic, it's going to be a different story, but it's still a good way to get sort of right and head out on the road where things have been tumultuous to say the least. And so you go to the Kings, and I'll let you just kind of take away with that Wednesday night game.
So last week to me against Chicago was my favorite win of the season as far
Okay.
as hustle, as a playoff atmosphere against a high quality team in a close game situation. Loved every single second of how the guys performed in that one. This game was probably my least favorite, most embarrassing loss of the season for Portland. Listen, we lost them on the opener, so they obviously match up against us all right. I mean, they have
Yeah.
shooters all over the place with Heald and Barnes, or not Barnes, but Harrison Barnes,
Yeah.
who had 8 threes against us in the first game, and they're already kind of a tough team to deal with. But in this one, man, so they come into the game no Raquan Holmes, okay,
Yeah.
so he's out. They lost Barnes with an injury in about the third quarter, so he's gone.
Okay.
De'Aaron Fox gets ejected from the game, so
Yeah.
he's gone.
Yeah.
None of those guys are in a closing game situation, and you pretty much have everybody else except for Rocco, who also got ejected. I don't know if anybody saw it, but he took his mask off and tossed it towards the sideline, and it hit a ref, and that's an
Oh,
immediate ejection. He didn't toss it hard. It didn't look aggressive, but he hit a ref. You got to look where you're aiming, bud.
yeah.
And not that he did anything before he went out. It was in the end of the second half. So before he goes out, he was 0 for 1, had all zeros in every other
Yeah.
category. Yeah, for the Dutch
Ugh.
people that won their Civil War this week. Congratulations.
Ugh. Thank you.
Yeah, he had a turnover, so he did contribute somewhat. Better than
Oh, great.
a little different than CJ's 0 and 1 foul first half against Chicago. But yeah, he didn't do anything anyway, but he goes out. You still have the advantage there. I mean, that's a game where we should absolutely have dominated them, and the defense was porous. Nurk looked great offensively. I mean, he had arguably his best game of the season. What he ended up with,
Yeah.
like 28 points, 17 rebounds,
28,
5 assists.
17. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
They
that's a
also had
crazy good game.
6 fouls, so he fouled out against really no center power on the other team, and he had a negative defensive rating. So even though he was down there doing the dirty down low, he was
Oof.
unable to stop anybody on the other end. I mean, it
Sure.
was embarrassing. But to me, the biggest thing was the bench in this one. This is what crushed us. We had no
Okay.
Simons already coming into the game. We lost Rocco, so we had to kind of put Nance and Little into higher minutes and then rotate the other one in, which already hurt your bench. But they had Heald come out and get 22 points. Mitchell came out and got, I think, 16 points.
16.
Bagley came out and got 10 points. Bagley looked great. I don't know if you were watching, everybody was watching the game, but they actually booed him at one point. They were booing him because he missed a shot. And then
Wow.
as soon as he goes down, he drew a foul and got the N1, and it was like he was the MVP of that arena. So that was
That's shocking
fans
and
are fickle.
annoying.
Fans are fickle.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean that alone was the difference. I mean, we didn't have a bench because of Simon's not playing and the other guys having to move up into a starting role. But Dame and CJ didn't look great. They didn't look bad, but there just wasn't enough defense. I mean, the
Yeah.
offense wasn't the problem in this one. We obviously put up 121 points,
Yeah.
which is 11 points above our season average. So that's great. But again, we gave the Kings way too many easy looks. And the fouls. This game was, I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but mostly in the second half, there were
Ugly.
27 fouls. That's That's unheard of. I mean, it was a whistle
Yeah.
every single I swear every single possession there was some kind of a whistle going on. I mean, I'm exaggerating obviously, but there were way too many fouls in this game, especially in the third quarter. It slowed things down so much. Guys are getting just all sorts of tense. That's why Fox got ejected.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it was kind of a crazy deal to see, and just kind of let them stay in the game and hang in there, and it kept it a lot closer than it probably should have. And then on
Yeah.
the flip side of that, when they stopped calling so many fouls, I think in the fourth quarter, especially down the stretch, that's really when the defense just wasn't there. I don't know if guys were just trying not to foul because of the foul trouble that they were in,
Sure.
but it was too many easy buckets, and that's a team. They're not good already. They haven't been good. They just fired their coach. So they let Walton go about the week before. So they had Alan Gentry as their stand-in head coach, who's
Yeah.
been with Phoenix and I believe New Orleans.
Yep.
And yeah, it just I mean they already come in without Holmes. They lose Barnes and Fox in that game, arguably their two best players, and you still can't get it done with the full squad. So not great.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand. Nurkic played great in stretches, but how do you have a negative defensive rating against Alex Len and
And put up
Marvin
28 points.
Marvin Bagley, and like that's just I appreciate what Nurkic does, but at the same time, I saw a report that came out over the weekend that said that basically Nurkic's rim protection is not very good. And when I say not very
Hasn't
good,
been.
I mean like I think Nasir Little was a lot higher than him on the list, and it's like how does that even happen, dude? Like I mean, Nasir Little is a great defender, don't get me wrong, but you, Nurkic's defense has been pretty porous, and you can say that that's the Chauncey system because they're up switching up at the top. Okay, that's great, but that means that we're really accessible down low, and that's not going to get fixed overnight or anytime soon by rotations. So, what exactly is the plan on the defensive end if you're going to give up 125 to the Kings with no Rashawn Holmes and Bagley gets ejected or gets out of the
Fox.
game?
Fox got it.
It's yeah, it's like it's kind of shocking to me.
Yeah, it's not great. We're gonna talk about that a little more too when we cover after we cover the Warriors game. But yeah, I mean, Nurk being drawn up to try to help out with the screens is great.
Yeah.
He has shown flashes, and you can find highlights of him being able to recover and chase a guard down and get back in position. But he just hasn't been. He didn't in this game. They were getting beat down low constantly.
Uh-huh.
It's just it's gonna have to change it then. Like I love that they're getting him involved offensively, and I love that he's scoring more, especially the last couple of games. He's really been involved. They're going to him to start games off a lot like they did when Stotts was running the show. But I don't know if he just looks lost on the defensive side. He doesn't seem to be able to recover as well. They're getting confused on these rotations, and guys are getting open, and a lot of that is because he's not there to really be an anchor down low. And it's going to have to be a balance against certain teams. You're going to have to figure that out or adjust a little better mid game to get a guy in a better position to make shots a little harder and force the ball back out. But when you lost Rocco, you lost a lot of your perimeter defense anyway. They
Yeah.
already didn't have Simons. So it was a tough ask. You have Nance, you have Little, and you have Powell out there rotating around on the wings. But again, they're not used to playing with each other, and they're all over the place when it came to rotation. So.
Yeah, and you're the veteran team. You should be able to switch it on at the end there. And there were some inbounds issues there. Those seemed to me, I mean, like CJ was inbounding a ball that kind of, for lack of a better term, was a terrible play, and he missed somebody. And it's like, I get that we can't blame that on coaching. I do think that lies with the player, but we're supposed to be the veteran team who's been to the playoffs a bunch of times. We should be able to close these games out against the Kings that are down some of their best players. That was a tough loss. This is an ugly game.
It was an ugly game.
Yeah.
But it's it's fine. We lost. We move on. We
Yep.
move on to a team that is going to be a bar setter for a lot of teams right now to see how good you're going to be come playoff time because this team has been on a red hot roll. Yep, the Warriors 103 to 118 is an L in our books here.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. What did you notice in this one? I mean, I have a couple of things that stood out to me, but where do we start?
Okay, so here's where we start. And this is the problem that I see with the current makeup of the Blazers and the makeup that we've had for the last 5 years. It's against certain teams, we get played off the floor with Nurkic because he's just not quite good enough to guard undersized tweeners. And we struggle really bad with perimeter defense. So what are you going to do? I mean, they don't even have Klay Thompson back yet, but what are you going to do with Jordan Poole, Steph Curry, when Draymond's shooting, when Wiggins is shooting? I mean, what are you going to throw at them? And Draymond Green, for lack of a better term, just ripped Nurkic apart. There was really nothing that Nurkic could offer on the defensive end. That to me, I mean, we can go deep into the bench, and if you want to go to Tony Snell and point the finger at him, I totally understand like why you would want to do that. But Dame, CJ, and Nurk, the main core, are just not good enough to stop these Warriors as they're currently as they've been constructed for 7 years now.
Yeah, we just talked about how the rotation defense is terrible after those first couple passes are made.
Yeah,
Draymond Green ripped us apart. I mean,
yes,
ripped us apart all game. He looked unstoppable. I mean, yeah, we showed the 12 assists right there on the box score, but
he's amazing.
I mean, it's so much more than that. There's so many times where he kicked the pass that went to another guy that ended up with points that he doesn't get the assist for, but he
Yeah,
started everything.
yeah,
We were talking to people in the offseason, and we were like, hey, would you trade for Draymond Green? You know, Dame wants Draymond Green in Portland. Who knows what the Warriors are at the last couple of years? They didn't make the playoffs. You never know. Do we make a move? And it was like, oh, no, not Draymond Green. Draymond Green is too old. No.
His contract is too much money.
20 mil. We're paying CJ how much to get 15 points in a big game? I mean, CJ's looked absolutely terrible the last couple of weeks. He's had a couple sparks, sure, but it hasn't looked good. And Draymond Green just, I mean, again, rips this up. Curry does Curry stuff. You know, you hope that Dame rises to the occasion. He goes into this game against Golden State, and he actually averaged just about 29 points a game, his highest against any other team in the league as far as points go.
Yeah.
And he didn't show up. I don't know where he was at. He was missing his shots that he's been making the last couple of weeks. He didn't look like himself. I don't know if maybe he was a little banged up or he was frustrated or what it was, but Curry ended up just crushing us. 32, 7 rebounds, 8 assists, almost get a triple-double, and really didn't even turn it on until the end. I mean, he was kind of mediocre most of the game. And
Looked
then
like he was deferring.
He has that ability to sit there and just start shooting lights out of nowhere.
This is a matchup I thought we should use the Nance small ball lineup. I mean, it just didn't look to me like Nurkic is going to be effective, and I get that Chauncey wants to test that out, and Nurkic got his typical 24 minutes, and so did Nance, but it just neither one of those lineups could ever get going. Now, granted, when Dame plays kind of trashy and gets you 16 points, you're probably not going to compete with a lot of teams, and defensively, I'm not even going to grill the Blazers because the Warriors rip everybody up with ball movement and perimeter shooting.
Right.
Like there's no formula to stop that 100% besides having like 5 really switchable Giannis's. But at the same time, dude, it's like every possession looked like a cakewalk for them. And offensively, we struggled so bad to score. It was just ugly. I mean, Dame just looked completely disheveled at times. And that's the thing that's frustrating is like sometimes the Blazers can get countered so hard they don't even know what to do.
Right. And I didn't expect to beat the Warriors. I don't
No,
it sounds a little more pessimistic, sure, but I
I think
mean,
it's just
they're the top team in the league. They're number one team defensively and one of the top offensive teams in the league. They're slashing everybody left and right. I
everybody.
just wanted to see how good we could compete with them. That was kind of my thing. I mean, we played them hard in the past. Dame loves, like we said, he loves playing in Golden State. He was down there with his family for Thanksgiving, so he didn't really have to travel. He was already there.
Yeah.
So you kind of hope that he would do a little bit better, but there were some other things that were positive. I mean, Anthony Simons was recently hasn't been super hot. We were talking about how we kind of need him to come and get back to what he was doing at the beginning of the year. Right. He had an okay 14-point game. I believe that was against the Nuggets, and that was fine, but he really came back out in this one. 19 points. He had 5 threes. He led the Blazers in scoring. It really was the second half that he didn't have anything, I don't think. He had almost 0 points coming into the second half. Finally just got red hot, hitting floaters, hitting threes. Actually got us back in the game for the most part until Curry kind of turned it on. So that was good to see, man. We've seen Little just be excellent the last few weeks, and Nance is starting to come into his own. And we kind of lost a lot of what Anthony was giving us, and to see him come out and have a good game was great. You were texting me saying, "Oh, we got to be done. We're done with Amp," and I was like, "Yeah, man. Let's just see what Dennis Smith can do." We gave up on him a little quicker, and he kind of came out.
Yes, man.
So
It's just maybe this is just youth, but it's frustrating to see how Anthony just looks lost at times and then makes kind of some really bad plays. But maybe it was just the Warriors defense, right? Like, I mean, Dame and CJ didn't do very well either. So it's not like we can sit here and be like, Anthony Simons can't produce. Let's give it more time. It's just frustrating because at times he looks completely overmatched on both ends of the court. And when that happens, you really you need a point guard to run your offense. And at times Anthony Simons didn't look like that in this game.
No, and Dennis Smith looked really good against the Kings. I
Yeah.
mean, it came in, the defense was just annoying for the opponent. He was
Right.
all over them. He was making plays. So it would be nice to maybe see them play a little more with him and Anthony off ball, just to let Anthony get catch and shoot
See.
situations
Yeah.
and cut a little bit more. But he looked good, and I liked the passion that we showed a little bit. I mean, Scotty Brooks got ejected at halftime, right at the end of the second quarter. They were mad about a foul call Dame didn't get. Dame actually had the technical as well, complaining to the refs. So, it's good to see them at least be upset about not getting the calls, see the coaches go out there and stick up for their players. You can't be too mad at that. Golden State was going to be a rough game anyway, especially on the road where we just haven't been good. Wasn't expecting much there, but really kind of hoped that we would be coming into this game 2-0 in the week, but we didn't.
Yeah. So we can talk more about this specific matchup, and then I have some stuff that I want to talk about with net rating with you, and I want to ask you some questions about. But basically, what it comes down to is when the Warriors are at full health, there's not a lot of teams that are going to match up very well with them. But in the past, the Blazers have been a team that's given them trouble. And that Friday night did not look like that at all. And Chauncey really didn't have a lot of counters. I mean, there was not a lot more that you could throw at them. If the Blazers came into a series against Golden State, I think it'd be over pretty quick. And that goes back to a product of the roster. But I don't think there's anything either a coach or the roster can do right now with the current construction of the Warriors. You're just gonna have to play your best, and we didn't do
No,
that.
when they get Klay Thompson back and they have what's his face not even playing good. He hasn't played for him. Not
Are you talking about Kuminga or Wiseman?
Wiseman. I couldn't
Yeah, both of them are
remember.
basically redshirting right now
Yep.
because
So
this
when they
team is
get those guys back, you get the top pick in Wiseman, who hasn't got a chance to play. He's going to outdo Looney eventually, and he's way more athletic. They're,
probably.
they're going to be a scary team. I
Yeah.
mean, everybody's going to struggle against them. They're definitely back and healthy. The last couple of years, they haven't had Curry at full health, Draymond at full health, and obviously haven't had Thompson either. So, and
Yeah.
Poole looks like he's going to be a stud. I don't think they're going to be able to keep him once his
I don't
contract is
either.
up,
We'll
but
see.
he looks great. So good for them. That's it, man. That's it for all the games this week. I don't have a lot more to touch on for
Yep.
them specifically. Obviously, some things we can talk about on the week
Yeah.
as a whole, but really, that's all been summed up there in the three games. I don't have too much else
Yep.
to say on those.
Yeah, I don't really either. I mean, not the best week of effort from the Blazers. We could talk about the road thing. I mean, this home road split is becoming like legitimately a real thing. We've won one game
Yeah,
on the road, and it was against a bad Houston team that straight up
1-10
tanked.
at the time.
I don't know what the fix is for that. Do you have any are we going to turn that around at any point this year, or is this just a thing?
It's unheard of. I mean, we lost one home game. That was the Kings. That was the opener, and since then we've gone 9-0.
Yep.
We're still 10-10. We're sixth in the West. We're not even in the playoff bubble at this point in time. You only
Yeah.
get 41 home games. So
Crazy.
at this point we're talking 40-1, 40-1. I mean, if it were to continue to be like this, you're probably not going to be you'd be 41-41. That'd be your record if we kept this up. So
Yeah, I don't get it.
you can't
This could
you
be a
can't do that
500
if you're going to
team. I
be a
don't know.
playoff team. So it's interesting. I don't know what the fix is. I don't know why they're so much better at home. The rotation defense looks terrible on the road, but it's not like it's any different. You're still playing basketball.
Yeah.
The crowd, sure, maybe. There's just something off about them when they travel. I don't
Yeah.
know how to explain it. I don't know what the fix is. I'd understand if you lost a couple and you could point out to some teams and just how they play at home, et cetera. And NBA is a hard home field advantage anyway,
Yeah.
more than a lot of sports. But I don't know how you fix it. I mean, I can't speak to it. They're doing some of the same things at home that they're doing on the road statistically.
Yeah.
They're just coming out on top in these close games.
They are. Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, I just figured it's something we get hit on because of this exact stretch right here. And, I have some stuff for you that I want to come up with for you next that I don't think you've seen or that I've presented to you yet that I'd like to show you.
Yeah, let's get into it because I want to talk about. So we talked about this week being our 20 games. So we mentioned that we're 10-10, 20 games in. So we're at the quarter season mark.
Yep.
My personal opinion that this is enough time to really start to gauge and start to judge and grade Chauncey Billups and the roster build and all that fun stuff. This is enough time for me for a new head coach to really get a good idea. Now, obviously, they're still figuring some things out, but for the most part, we can start diving into stats. I'm looking forward to seeing what you have for me, and let's dive into it, man.
Yeah. So I'm just going to share my screen, and it can be really hard to see for you. So I'll kind of just throw some
You think
ideas
my
out
eyes
there.
are bad?
No, it's just the
Let me
screen
get
is kind of
prepared. Let me
small
just zoom into the camera here. What?
when we stream it. So this is just NBA.com. It's just on court, off court, defensive rating, net, negative rating, plus rating, whatever you want to say. So basically, if you look at this chart, you could see when a person is on offense, on defense, how many minutes they've played, what it looks like, and what their net is. So this is really weird because CJ is actually a plus 9.6 on the defensive rating. He's actually like our best defensive player by this metric. Now, again, this metric is not like the end all be all, but it's kind of interesting to look at this and see that CJ is actually like our best quote unquote defensive player because of who he plays with in the
Well, it
lineup.
doesn't necessarily mean defense, does it? I mean, that has to do with how many points are scored while he's off and how many points are scored while he's on. That just means that he puts up more points when he's on the court, or the team is putting up more points when he's on the court than when they're off, right? So
basically, but here's the other thing. If you go look at Nurkic, that we're a negative 7.4 when he's on the court. Isn't that crazy?
yeah, I mean, I feel it's that person in particular, right? It's not the team. So it does not surprise me because I feel like Nurkic hasn't this year scored a bunch, whereas CJ's had bigger games where he's scored more, even though he's giving up more points. But
So
yeah, I
Dame
mean,
and Nasir are exactly the same at 2.4 defensively.
and that makes probably some sense. So
Isn't that
again,
weird?
when I talk about these types of things, you start looking at these ratings. I mean, Portland is at this point offensively, we're putting up points. Like that's
Yeah.
not a problem. So these ratings are going to look a little off if you're not actually watching the games. You're not actually seeing the plays live and watching what they're doing. It's really hard sometimes to gauge this from a statistical standpoint because we're such a good offensive team. I mean, right now I believe we're 7th in the league at 110 points, if I'm not mistaken. So that's fine and dandy. Like, yeah, these are you're going to see a differential. That's going to be weird for some players versus others because of what the points are when they're out there.
In defense or whatever.
But yeah, but I mean, when you look at the when you start looking at the team stats as a whole, I mean, for instance, here's our defensive rating on the year as a team. Just in these specific categories. So in field goal percentage, we are 28th. We give up 47.4% a game. Ugh. We are 29th. So we actually moved up. We were last in 3-point percentage. Now we are 29th. We give up 38.5% from three this year. And we are 24th allowed or in points allowed. So we give up 110 points a game. We score 110.6. So we actually score 0.6 more points than we give up a game. That's a lot of close games. That's a lot of why we're 10-10 right now.
Yeah.
So that's it's fine to look at certain players and what their specific defensive ratings are, and it's fine to look at some of the net stuff. But again, unless you're watching it, I mean, unless you're seeing CJ continues to get burnt and beat on screens and his one-on-one defense, there's going to be highlights. Anybody can go through and find a play where, CJ locked this guy down. CJ got a block here. He actually played great defense. Yeah, they're going to have it. There's going to be flashes. But overall, it's not pretty. And the fact that he was scoring so much and he's had these games where he's put up a lot of points, the differential is going to look like, he's actually a plus because when he's out there, he's outscoring the other people, even though they're giving up points. So it looks great. It looks like he's a plus, but I just don't feel that that's a good indicator. I never cared for that stat because I think it's really, really hard to
misleading.
It's misleading. That's a good word for it. It's misleading when you think about it.
Yeah. Well, I just thought it was weird because Powell's really balanced on both ends of the floor, which you would expect, right? And then you look at guys like Dame, and Dame has an amazing offensive rating, and defensive, it's obviously going to be low. But then you look at Nurkic, and his defensive rating is terrible. And honestly, I don't feel that Nurkic's defense this year has been very good. And I think a lot of that has to do with the new system. The new system is him being out there, like you said, against pick and roll ball handlers. He's hedging and he's aggressively cutting off ball handlers, but it's not leading to any. If we're playing against a team that can pass, it's not leading to anything good because they just pass around it. And then the rotations are awful on the back end, dude. They've been
It's
atrociously
terrible.
bad. And that, a lot of that is like Rocco not closing out, but just it's not a
Well,
very good cohesive unit.
it's one of the reasons we're so poor at defending percentage because we're giving up a lot of
Yeah.
easy buckets at the basket. We're giving up a lot of easy drives. The 3 points are
A
pathetic.
drive.
I mean, we're giving some of the worst teams in the league percentage wise. We're letting them look really good against us. Toronto
Right.
was an example of that. It's
Awful. It's embarrassing.
again, it comes down to the players because yeah, Damon CJ Nurk goes up and helps them at the point of attack. Once that ball starts moving around, either somebody's open at the rim and Nurk's not able to get back and
That's
help in
it.
time,
Right.
or the ball's being kicked out so many times that the guy that CJ and Dame is supposed to be guarding that gets gets one of the wing players, they kick out to another 3-point shooter. But now Powell or Rocco or whoever's out there has had to go try to help on the first rotation. They're not there on the second one, and guys are just getting wide open looks.
Yeah.
It's
And
it's not ideal. I thought we were actually going to be worse in turnovers in the system we were. That was a big thing that I wanted to
yeah.
look into. Was talking about that. This really see kind of how our defensive stats are leading to some of these offensive stats, and
Yeah.
it makes sense that we're such a good offensive team. But I just can't. I can't sit here and deal with
Defense
these
is no
rotations
better.
anymore. I mean, if you watch the guys when they're out there, they just look lost. And Rocco hasn't looked good at all. I
No.
mean, he's had a couple games where he's looked all right, but he just hasn't looked like what he was last year. There's no deflections. There's
Yeah.
no guys having to pass because he's on them. He's getting lost consistently, and that's why we're seeing more Nance in little minutes.
Yep. Yeah, and Little's been just fine. I mean, he's made really splashy plays. He's definitely had a few misses, but I think that him and Nance to me equals a better defensive switching mentality. You're going to give up size, but Nurkic only took advantage of the Kings this week. He couldn't really do a whole lot against Golden State because their bigs actually gave him problems, and he looked kind of bad in that game at times. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat Nurkic's performances. I don't really care for the way that we played this week, and I know that we'll come back and we'll fight at home. But I think some of the home road splits, some of that has to do with the starting lineup, and I think at some point you got to look at that and shake it up and get Rocco and Nurkic out of there.
Yeah, I mean it's not great. I mean we've talked about Nurk historically has been a good defensive player. He's been a guy that's been able to
Yes.
clog the paint and look good. I 100% agree. I was worried about this coming into the year with pulling him out so much and him having to recover, and it's caused these rotations to be all thrown off because the guys are getting around him or behind him, and then those passes are just being made to these open shooters.
Yeah,
It's
I don't know. I don't
I
have
don't
the
know. I feel
answers.
at times you need to get back to what you were doing successfully with the guys that you had before. And I know people were so annoyed with Stotts' defense and et cetera, but the ratings weren't this bad. I mean, the defensive rating as a whole, yeah, the percentages have not been this bad. I mean, we're giving up a lot of easy buckets.
Yeah,
Offensively, we're countering that a little more than I think we have
yeah,
before. And I think that's where rating wise we're about the same as we were before. But I think a lot of it has to do with, being 10th in the league in assists this year.
hmm
We're only 6 in turnovers. We're not turning it over very much, only 12 a game, which is surprising. I honestly thought we were turning over a little bit more.
yeah.
So those have been countering out some of these defensive woes that we've had. Once again, not a good defensive team after 20 games.
And that's not going to change. I'm sorry. Like there's going to be nights where we look better at home and we feed off the crowd's energy, but you're not going to sit here and sell me that this defense is vastly better because of the different style. We've thrown zones out there, we've done different things, but it hasn't equaled better production on the defensive end. And offensively this week, I don't see a lot. I mean, yes, the ball moves a little more, but you still had against the Warriors, Norman Powell has 0 assists. Larry Nance has 0 assists. Robert Covington has 0 assists. So the team ball movement is not as good as you or we think it is, especially in the games where it goes south. Now, when things are flowing, it's probably great. I could check a game where we won, like Denver, but this offense to me is still going to be Dame and CJ need to get 32 and 25 or 30 and
Yeah,
30 or so. You know what I mean? Like there's got to be that
100%.
part
I
of it
mean,
or it's not successful.
no, the recent stretch, especially. I mean, look how bad we were when Dame was struggling to start this year off. And now that Dame is back doing what Dame was best at doing. That's attacking off of the dribble and shooting deep threes and doing all the stuff that they normally do. Same with CJ.
Yeah.
You know, I think early in the season they were so focused on trying to run this offense and make these passes and integrate this new ball movement system that it was taking them time to get up to the level of play that we're accustomed to from them. It's not their game. And now we're back to doing this ISO stuff. Most of these games are coming down to ISO scoring. Yeah, it didn't work out against Golden State. Should have worked out against the Kings, but we are doing a lot more of that, and you're just not going to take it out of these two. It's the Dame and CJ DNA at this point.
Yeah, I think so.
And Chauncey's not going to fix that. We're about the same rating wise as we were the last couple of years with Stotts. That hasn't changed, and we're just as bad defensively, at least percentages wise.
Yeah. Maybe not historically bad, but still worst in the league, like bottom 3 in the league bad. And we've always said that this team, as currently constructed, is never going to be a middle of the pack defense unless you have Dame and CJ stagger minutes more, or you bring in better perimeter defenders.
And I don't care what anybody talks. You're not going to convince me anything about the last couple of years. COVID affects that significantly. Yeah. Nobody in the stands. The weird home court thing where it's quiet. There's just a certain energy. A lot of teams were bad defensively. Yeah, we were historically bad, but I'm not looking too far into that because it's not the same atmosphere. Now you're getting fans back. You're getting a lot of this emotion back.
Yeah.
And we're still terrible on defense, especially bringing in a guy who was supposed to change the accountability on defense and fix a lot of these little errors that we were making. You're arguably more athletic and you're actually doing just as bad. There's no excuse for it.
Well, and I think a lot of that goes back to communication too. I mean, there's times where if you watch that Warriors game, Draymond Green was communicating and calling people around and telling them what to do. And then when things broke down, he would take accountability. Larry Nance
does that on our team.
Larry Nance does that
on our team.
I don't think Nurkic does not do that. And I know Dame and CJ don't really do that because it's kind of like every time somebody scores on them, it's kind of like shrug. Oh, well, we'll go get them on offense. Right. And that mentality is so deep that I don't think that coaching can change that amongst those 3 guys. And I think it frustrates some of the other players on the team. And I think it's frustrated a lot of the role players on these teams around that core. So that's why I always think it's the roster. I just personally believe that.
Well, you're not going to convince me that it's not the roster, so I'm glad you're not trying because it is. We've talked about it for years. I just don't. I'm sorry. I'm going to give Chauncey some more time.
Yeah.
From what I've seen with his, the new system, the defensive mindset, and all this stuff, I haven't seen the improvements. I'm sorry. We're 6th in the West. I don't know where we were at this point last year. I probably should have looked that up, but we're probably about the same. In my mind, I think we're a 4 through 6 seed, maybe 7 and 8 if things you run into an injury or a slide. We're about the same as we were. Offensively, we're right there in the top 5, top 10 consistently throughout the year. And defensively, we're bad. So lots of stuff to clean up. The rotations aren't going to be fixed overnight. I get that. That's part of running a whole new bench and a roster, trying to get used to a whole new system. So we'll give it some more time. But I mean, if you had to give a grade on the first quarter of the season, what would you grade the team right now? Now we are 6th in the West. We're not in the playoff bubble.
Yeah.
But what would you grade us if you had to be honest?
Tough question. I mean, I would give us like a C+ right now. I think we're passing the grade. I don't think it's a straight up failure, but at the same time, at what point do you think that this team is much better than what we were last year or the year before? Like, at what point are you seeing a 2019 Western Conference Finals run, barring some crazy injury-laden run? The biggest thing for me, and I'm going to let you rate this team here in a second. The biggest thing for me is this team has not changed. Like they are the same exact iteration of what we've seen for 5 years now. And so in certain matchups, they'll be able to exploit that, but against the Warriors, they will not. And so that's why I say C+.
Yeah, it's pretty close. I was going to say C-, mainly because I think we're passing. I think that's great. I also think we've had a couple good breaks with a lot of teams that we've played. Some of the better teams haven't had some of their better players. So it's hard for me to look at that. I looked at what we did when we went up against a fully healthy, well, not fully healthy, but a mostly healthy Denver team. When we had the MVP in the league in Jokic, and he just did what Jokic always does, absolutely destroyed us. I look at what we do against a team like the Warriors, not good. Phoenix, the first game, all right, they were kind of figuring things out still. I mean, they were off a little bit of a finals hangover. Then we played Phoenix the second time.
Yeah.
We saw what happens when you go up against the Western Conference champion from last year. We're not competing at all with these teams. We look bad. Yeah, you can say we beat Denver a couple days ago. Great. They didn't have Jokic. Doesn't count. You can say the Lakers game was, we beat them, but they didn't have half their team there. No LeBron, no Anthony Davis. I mean, he played 7 minutes or so, but
Yeah.
Utah is going to be an interesting one for me to watch because
Sure.
this is what people need to really pay attention to when you talk about the improvements and things that you can point to as positives is how does the changes of the coaching staff and the systems and the schemes and the roster, how so far are they going to compete against the top teams that we're going to have to go into playoffs with? Right now, I see a team that's a second round loss if we get there. I think we can fight in the first round, sure, depending on where you're at. If you're 4, 5, 6, for now, probably all right. You can
Win your home
compete.
games.
If you slip to 7 and 8, you're not going to beat any of the top teams. And right now, I think if you get in the second round, you're not beating Utah. You're not beating Phoenix. You're not probably beating the Clippers. The Clippers have beat us twice already this year. And that was Chauncey's old team. So a C, I'll give him a C because I think still being 6 with a new coach and a new system and a whole new roster is pretty impressive.
6th in the West.
So I'll give him that. So let's say a C because we just haven't looked to me like that team yet. Yeah, now it's early, but the team that I think can really compete. And you're going to lose another year potentially while you build everything around this system and get the guys you want. And that's going to be scary to me. But we'll reevaluate this at the half season marker. When we hit the 41 games, we'll talk about where we are. For now, I'm happy that we're 6 in the West. I have no complaints. It's early in the season. But we have a tough stretch against some good teams coming up that's really going to start gauging pretty fast where we're going to be as far as a competitor and a championship competitor.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. So let's just take a really quick peek at this week because I do want to talk about the upcoming schedule. We're going to have 4 games to break down next week. Let me share it here. So we are going to play the Jazz tomorrow in Utah. Then on Tuesday, we have back-to-back against the Pistons, which isn't scary at all. That's a pretty
shouldn't be. The Kings weren't scary at all. But go on.
That's a good point. We look ahead over the Kings too, and we got smacked. Spurs, obviously, they're a little downtrodden right now. We'll see how that game goes. And then Saturday, we play the Celtics. But then if you look at the upcoming schedule after that, it gets actually pretty gnarly. There's 4 games against Western Conference legitimate contenders other than the Timberwolves, and they've played better recently too. So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Jazz.
I don't know what's going to happen. In Utah, there's potential to get absolutely run out of that gym.
Yeah, the Jazz are going to be a tough one for us because they can do so many different things with size. Yeah. Their guards are good. In my opinion, they're still one of the teams that I think is going to compete for the finals this year with Phoenix and probably the Lakers. I don't care. If the Lakers make the playoffs with LeBron, Anthony Davis, and Westbrook, I'm sorry. And the Warriors, obviously. I mean, the Warriors number 1 team. So I should say the teams that aren't the Warriors because
they look crazy.
They're going to get there. They're going to get into the second, third round of playoffs. Sorry, they're just probably going to, unless barring an injury.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you hope that you take advantage of the Pistons. You stay at 500 right there. I mean, Jeremy Grant's fine.
Celtics.
But yeah, then you run into the Celtics, obviously, and it's just not. I don't know. They're one of those weird teams too. They haven't really played up to the capabilities of their roster. They have a new head coach. A lot of people just like us think they need to break up Brown and Tatum, and they're unwilling to do it like we are with Dame and CJ. So they're an interesting team.
It is, yeah. So just want to throw that out there, and I know we got some other stuff you want to cover, but that was something I wanted to kind of touch on real quick.
Yeah, and this is a good point, I think, to transition a little bit to a couple of fun things, and we'll start with our favorite segment because we haven't done it yet. We're 43 minutes or so into the podcast. Wow. We haven't done a favorite segment. Yeah, we're supposed to break it up after the recap. You threw me all off.
Yeah,
but that's all right. So blazing new trails, ex-player of the week. I will no longer give you a chance to do it. You've ruined it twice now. So
classic.
So that is going to be an easy one this week. Steve Smith. Just because we were on TNT, he is a TVT analysis. He does the TV play-by-play for them. So when you're watching the games, usually you'll hear him calling the play-by-play down there in the court. Played with us for a couple of years, 99 through 2000. He's a championship player. I believe he won with the Spurs and played a long time in the league. So people kind of forget that he played with us for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But that was during some of the best years in Portland. I mean, that was back when we were really competing for championships, and that was back with that era. So he's the guy for me this week. Just want to make sure people know that he played with us. He's on TNT, so it's always cool to catch him when he's out there and just know that guy played for the Blazers and played well on some of our best teams that we've had in team history. So
heck yeah, Steve Smith was awesome.
Steve Smith. Yep. I actually pretended to be him. I'd sit there and shoot threes in my bedroom with a little foam ball and the little door hoop.
He was the idol, huh?
I sat back there. Him and him, Bonzi Wells, Damon Stoudemire. I was rocking the Steve Smith corner three.
Oh yeah, you got to do it.
So that's my blazing new trail. Before I get to the really fun stuff, do you have anything else you want to add to the week? I mean, we've kind of covered a lot of it. I don't have much more to say at this point early in the season, except we're upset about the defense. We still don't look good. Percentages are killing us right now. We're letting teams stay in games when they shouldn't be, especially bad teams. The road and the home thing, man. I didn't let you touch too much on it. Do you have anything else you want to add on that?
No, I mean, I don't. Okay, basically, I think the question comes down to, is it the players lack energy on the road, or is it the coaching staff is not preparing them for road games? Like, what? I don't know. What is the travel running them down? Is there something that's affecting their energy? I really don't have the answer to that question. We just come out really flat on the road. You can see no energy. And look, historically, the Blazers are a fantastic home team. We always have been. In the last 3 or 4 years, we've been even better because we're such a jump shooting team that energy in the crowd really does sort of pump them up and get them going. But it's been flat out embarrassing this year how bad we've been on the road and against inferior opponents. Like, you go to Sacramento, that's not a long flight. You haven't been on a long road trip. You go in there and you just go flat cold. It's just kind of, and your leader, you look at your leaders, you look at Damon CJ and you go, okay, guys, you really got to kind of get us going here. And neither one of them has been able to flip the switch on the road. And that's just weird, bro.
Yeah, agreed.
It's frustrating.
All right.
Well, that was the only thing.
Then I'll get to the fun stuff.
Cool.
Most of you know, if you listen to us, that we've held a contest the last couple of weeks. It's pretty simple. In order to get a chance to win tickets to the Boston Celtics game on December 4th, all you had to do was comment on the last video we did or the video before that when we announced the contest with your favorite Blazers memory. So I have a winner. There's only a couple people that actually put memories down, and one of those winners, I'm probably going to say the name wrong. I don't. Thrandi. It could be Thrandi. I'm sorry. Listen, I'm apologizing. It's just your username on YouTube. But you won, man. You commented with your post. I was going to read it, but I think the phone that I had died. Let me check it up real quick. I'm going to give you a memory. Oh, I can still get to it. I should have had this up already.
This person is winning tickets to the Boston Celtics game because I was ineligible because I'm actually a podcast member. So I couldn't
have chose you.
That's
your favorite. What is your favorite Blazers memory, by the way? While I'm pulling this up, I'm curious what you would have
put. My personal favorite Blazers memory?
Yeah, your personal favorite Blazers memory.
I broke my chair in the 2014 Dame buzzer beater against Houston in the first round, the 0.3 second shot. I actually physically broke my chair because I was sitting back in it expecting to lose, and when I leaned forward, I kicked my chair so hard I snapped it. So it was probably the 2014 first round buzzer beater. I will say that the second one, the Thunder OKC like wave bye shot, that shot I actually jumped up and punched my knuckles into my ceiling and almost broke my ceiling. So thanks a lot, Damian Lillard. You've been ruining my home for probably almost a decade.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, that was a long story.
I mean, obviously the Dames. I was there for the Oklahoma City winner, the bye shot, as you call it. I don't. Other than winning the championship, I don't know if I could even see the crowd ever being more jazzed and buzzed, even more than the Houston game, in my opinion. That was something else. The Andre bullet comes to mind when he got his revenge on Blake Griffin. I think he broke Blake Griffin that day. He was never the same after that.
Yeah.
But a special bonus memory of mine, one of my favorite memories. This was actually at a live game. A good friend and co-host of mine on Rip City Real Talk got to go down and shoot a free throw on the court, blindfolded free throw on his. It wasn't your birthday. It was a bachelor party for your friend.
So, yep, it was that, and then so we all went to a game, you and I and some friends, and I was in the middle of a run where I was about to go on a Jamaica trip. Do you remember the Jamaica trip that I went on that year?
Yeah, and for your award at your company.
It was right in between. It was in between those two things. So basically, like, we went down there, and then it's really funny because you and I were standing next to each other and they just walked up to me and said, "Hey, do you want to do this thing?" And I said, "Sure." And they said, "We'll grab you in the third quarter or something." I can't remember when it was, but I remember standing. That was Lamarcus's last season. And I remember standing like 6 feet away from him, and I should have just yelled, "Hey, Lamarcus, what up?" But I didn't.
Yeah, you're the reason he left.
I am. I'm
But
so
yeah,
sorry.
blindfolded. This guy first shot hits a blindfolded free throw, won $250. He was nice enough to buy the guys, us a round of beer. That was it. I mean, but that was something else. That was the same game that I think Steve in the section next to us got everybody the free Jamba Juice in the arena. He actually got to go down and do the free throw thing. Good for you, man. I'm 0 for 2. I got to do a Name That Tunes thing. It got absolutely dominated. I don't think I got one before the other person was just on the dot. And I did the bouncy horse race around the arena where you do the little race, trying to bounce the horse. I actually face planted. I'm going to find that video one day and I'll post it on the pod. Face planted on the horse. I tried to bounce so far forward, landed, couldn't get off the horse, fell. Everybody laughed. I got up, finished. It was great.
We will play that clip on this show at some point, I promise.
But my boy Thrandi, I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm assuming it's Randy. Anyway, his favorite memory, it was the season before we traded for Rashid. He was watching the game and thinking, who the heck is this guy? Put Chris Webber back in, he says. He's not as good. And then the next summer we traded and got Rashid, and he's still bitter, he says, with his CTC and other antics and that team's fourth quarter collapse against the Lakers. Yeah, I watched that. I was around long enough to watch us blow the fourth quarter against Kobe and Shaq. And then he said he had another one. It was a bonus, getting to be a kid and going to the game and seeing Billy Ray Bates dunking. Awesome, man. I love it. I love hearing some of the older memories, too, because a lot of people that I think follow the Blazers that we interact with, for the most part, are younger and don't. We grew up watching the era with Rashid and Damian Stoudemire and Bonzi Wells and Grant and all those guys. And that was really when I got into be a Blazer fan. I was a huge fan of watching them. I remember rooting for the Kings to beat the Lakers every year when we weren't competing with them. Chris Webber and Mike Bibby and Divock, because you just had to hate the Lakers. Kobe and Shaq, it was bad if you didn't root for them. So that's awesome, man. You won the tickets. Again, I'll probably comment on your video I'll comment on your comment on the last video here pretty quick. You're probably not going to see this before I reach out, but shout out, man. We're going to do other giveaways throughout the season, but maybe not necessarily tickets, maybe so. You never know. We just ask you guys to continue to subscribe, like the video, comment on the video, interact with us. We appreciate the fan base that we have so far. So awesome, man. That's it. That's all I got. Got our winner. Not much else to go over with the team. It's been a little bit rough this week, but we'll get some road wins will be in our future, I'm sure.
I'm sure. No doubt we'll come out and smack Utah on Monday. You heard it here first. Comment.
I hope so.
Gotta be great, wouldn't it?
All right. That it, man? You got anything else?
That's it, man. Thanks for doing the ticket giveaway. I think it's really special that we were able to do that, and you were stepped up and did that. So thanks for dealing with it. Other than that, no, you beat me down in fantasy. So I guess I'm just going to go cry in a corner for a while.
Oof, yeah, I forgot about fantasy football. Hey, man, I'm sure when I go back and look at the score, Lamar Jackson's going to have like 50 points. You needed like 70, but
Lamar straggled tonight mightily.
All right.
Just like that.
City Real Talk is out. We will see you guys next week. Again, appreciate everybody who listened. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff. We'll talk to you soon.
We are out.